Hi everybody, this is Jim again, your host of Simple Christianity. Excited here to start episode 2. We're going to be talking about the Kalam Cosmological Argument. So, if you are like me, or like most ordinary human beings, you've probably asked the question, or at least heard people ask, how did everything get here, right? Been asking that question since like the beginning of time, okay? And we've looked in many different places for the answer to that question. Science has weighed in. Specifically, when you take into account the Big Bang Theory and the theory of evolution, right? These two theories together is supposedly the scientific answer for how did everything get here. Big Bang, how did everything get here on a macro scale, cosmological scale, galaxies, whole universe, whatnot, and then evolution, how did life spring up here on Earth? That's its explanation. And when you look at religion, just about every major religion has some type of creation story or creation myth. But philosophy has also weighed in on this question, and sometimes that's not always looked at as well. You think either, your options are either scientific or they're religious, and you're going to lean one to the other based on your outlook on life or whatnot. But like I said, philosophy and logic have also proposed an answer to this as well. Just to give you a little bit of background, the Kalam Cosmological Argument is what we're covering today, right? So that whole premise, that whole argument, actually originates from a 12th century Muslim philosopher from Persia in modern day Iran. His name is Abu Hamid Muhammad, and so he put forth a pair of logical statements, logical claims, and an inference. And then that inference also has kind of like a sub-inference to it. So it goes like this. Number one, first logical claim is whatever begins to exist has a cause. Number two, the universe began to exist. And number three, therefore, so this is the inference, therefore the universe has a cause. And that sub-inference here is that the cause of the universe is God. Okay, so this is an argument that has been used very popular in debate circles. A philosopher and Christian debater that I follow and appreciate very much, named William Lane Craig, he often is credited for popularizing it. If you look up and try to find the history of it, you're probably going to see several, like if you Google it or whatnot, you'll probably see several different articles or sites that will cite William Lane Craig and his books or his writings or his history with this. But again, he wasn't the originator. The originator was from a 12th century Muslim philosopher, and even that person, the foundation, you could say, for that person's work was actually laid a few hundred years before that, from another Muslim philosopher who was looking to find and make empirical statements proving that the universe came into existence via God's direct intervention. So again, it's a very popular argument. It's very common, like I said, in debate circles. And I think that when you look at these objections, or these statements rather, whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Two logical statements with an inference at the end. And then as a believer, you would, or as a theist at least, you would say that, okay, well, that the cause of the universe is God. So you have to do something with this logical argument to be able to break it down somewhere. And you have to start with either the first or second premise, either that whatever begins to exist has a cause, maybe you have an issue with that, or that the universe began to exist. Because if you can do something, if you can argue against one of those 2 points and you can prove or disprove them, then the whole argument falls flat, and therefore it's not a good logical argument for the existence of God. So let's deal with the first one. That first premise, that everything that begins to exist has a cause. I imagine somebody might say, well, the cause of the universe was the Big Bang. And I would say no. I think we're confusing terms there a little bit. The cause is not the Big Bang. The Big Bang is the mode or the way in which that the universe was brought into existence. It's not the cause. It's like if somebody were to ask you, hey, how did you get to my house? And you said, a car. Well, we might colloquially and just kind of intuitively understand that yeah, you got here by a car, but the car didn't bring you. The car was not the cause of you coming here. You or somebody in a car drove you there. Okay, so the car was a vehicle. And I don't mean that obviously literally it's a vehicle, but it's also a vehicle in the sense that it was the mode in which you got to that person's house. Okay, maybe you rode a bike, maybe you flew a plane, maybe you rode on a boat. Maybe you're living in the future and you used a jetpack. It doesn't matter how you got here, but that thing is not the cause of you getting there. Okay, the reason that you're there, that was a tool that was used, but the actual cause is that somebody, or maybe you, drove the car to the location that you were going. So saying that the Big Bang is the cause is a confusion of terms, in that where it's not, it was used. You could say it was used, but it's the mode, it's the way that it was used. It doesn't mean that the Big Bang doesn't actually do anything in that respect on its own. Like, the Big Bang was caused by something or someone. So to say the Big Bang was the cause, that would, like I said, be a confusion of terms. So I don't think that that's a good objection. You could go to the second premise where it says that the universe began to exist. Some people have argued that the universe is eternal. It has always existed. But again, that goes against what mainstream scientific theory essentially affirms with this, is that, the whole issue with the Big Bang theory related to that objection that the universe is eternal is that the Big Bang theory is based on our observations and what we're able to see with our galaxy, and it pretty clearly shows that the universe was not always in this state. Okay, it was not always here. That it at one point comes back to a finite, small, specific point in the universe. So it's not that we think that the universe has always existed. There's strong evidence to suggest it hasn't. And in fact, the universe is not static either. So some people might think, okay, well, we're out here in our galaxy, just kind of is in this nice little orbital function. Our solar system, our galaxy likewise is just orbiting around this black hole. And so everything seems like it's in this very nice, orderly, systematic, resting position, but it's not. The universe is actually expanding currently. And the odd part is that the universe is expanding faster and faster and faster and faster all the time. It's not like an actual explosion. Like, if you think of like an explosion like you might see in the movies, where something explodes and at first everything's going really fast and it's really violent, but then it settles down and then things slow down and you're able to see the debris, and eventually that explosion is not dangerous to you anymore because it's gone, it's dissipated, right? And you can walk around the debris and you can see everything. The universe is a little bit different. It's not expanding or exploding in that same way. Imagine where something explodes, and actually, despite how violent it was at the epicenter of where it exploded, despite how violent it was, it's actually expanding faster and faster and faster and getting more and more violent the further out it goes. And that's one thing that's really puzzled our scientists today, is because they don't understand why that's the case. And one of the things that they're desperately trying to figure out and theorize around is what is motivating, what is pushing, what is adding the fuel to the expansion of the universe. But the point is that it is expanding, and it is expanding faster and faster all the time, to the point where there's a theory called the heat death of the universe. If you take what we're able to observe to its logical conclusion, and you can look this up, that as the universe continues to expand and expand, matter and energy are going to become so spread out and so few and far between that any of the heat, which heat is necessary for everything in the galaxy to be able to exist in one way, shape, or form, any of the heat that's in the galaxy will eventually dissipate. And what's understood to happen is eventually stars will all have gone supernova. Supernovas will occur less and less frequently until they stop occurring at all, because they'll have already happened. So you have no bright stars out in the universe. Then the black holes will begin to collapse in on themselves, and eventually everything will just be cold, dark nothingness. That is the fate of our universe. Now, there's probably trillions and trillions of years before that's going to happen, thankfully. We don't have to worry about that in the next couple decades or so. But that is the destiny of our universe. So again, when you're talking about, oh, it's eternal, everything that we're able to observe actually points to it being a finite thing where the universe began and it's only got so much time. Now, on a universal scale, it's a different thing than what we would say, but there's only some matter of time until the universe eventually just dies out. And very likely, no matter what we do, no matter where we're at, even if we're even around by then, there's very likely nothing that we're going to be able to do to be able to stop that. So, that's I think a big objection again from a scientific standpoint for why we would say that the universe is not eternal. So it did begin to exist. So you got premise 1 and premise 2 seem to be, untouchable. But there's a guy, his philosopher named Paul Draper, and he suggests that modern day cosmology would posit that tiny particles do in fact pop into existence uncaused out of nothing near black holes. And so while that might seem like a decent objection there, and he's saying, oh, modern day cosmology is saying this. Modern day cosmology is theorizing this. Okay, it's just like the Big Bang Theory. We have an idea, we think it's right, but ultimately we can never be sure. The evidence points towards that being a logical conclusion. Theory of evolution. Mainstream science will say they think it's right. And the evidence points towards that, again, is what they'll say. But ultimately, nobody can know because you have to be there to observe it. So that's the thing about science. When people are saying, oh, well, science will give us the answer, science can only weigh in on things that are observable, testable, and repeatable. Okay, the Big Bang is not observable, it's not testable, it's not repeatable. You can just observe the effects and try to form conclusions. Evolution. It's not repeatable, it's barely observable. Based on what mainstream science would say, it takes millions and millions of years for any meaningful change to happen. So as far as we're concerned, unless we go on this grand study for millions and millions of years as a human race to try to study and see if evolution is real, that's also not observable. You can't repeat it in that sense, again, because it happens on such a long scale. So science is, while it's good at making suggestions and theorizing, when it comes to things that are not observable, repeatable, or testable, if you can't apply the scientific method to it, it's ultimately going to lead you to inconclusive conclusions. Okay, but so I say that to say that when this guy suggests that cosmology is thinking that maybe things do pop out of nothing uncaused near black holes, think about that. Do we have the technology to get to the closest black hole, which is at the center of our galaxy? We can barely get out of our solar system. Okay, so and when we're talking about observing things from very far distance, we're not even talking about usually seeing things in detail. Like we can look at the surface of the moon in detail. We can look at the surface of Mars in detail. We can look at Venus in more detail. Right? It's mostly covered in gas, so it's hard to see the surface. But we can see these things because it's close, and our technology is advanced enough that we can point something at it and zoom in and get some decent detail. But even most of the detail that we have is not just from our telescopes, it's from Mars. Taking an example, land rovers. Okay, we can observe some basic topography from where we're at, and we can even zoom in quite closely at this point. But up until recently, we couldn't really see much of the surface of Mars without the assistance of Mars rovers, right, moving around and taking pictures and videos for us. So take this into account, because a lot of times people make very high and lofty claims of what science has discovered and what science says. And this is another one where people are trying to suggest that science has come to some type of conclusion, that things can pop into existence uncaused out of nothing near black holes, and specifically referring to these tiny particles. We can't get close enough to a black hole to know. And while there might be some evidence that hints at it or suggests that it is, there is no conclusive evidence that says, yes, this is what's happening. We know this to be true. We don't. And what I would suggest is that because we know anecdotally and experientially that things do not pop into existence uncaused out of nothing, that we can probably rely on. Eventually, we'll be able to find the cause. Right now, we don't understand why this happens or why that happens. But everything that we've been able to see and observe and test and repeat, right? Again, applying a scientific method to this. If you're able to see, observe, repeat it, and test it, everything that we've seen thus far has shown that things do not pop out of existence uncaused, out of nothing. The reason why I'm sitting here and I'm not worried that an elephant is going to appear above my head and fall on me and crush me, because I know that elephants do not appear uncaused out of nothing, and therefore there's no danger. There's a reason why you are not scared to climb into your bed at night thinking that a snake is suddenly going to appear there uncaused out of nothing, because you know that, especially depending on where you live, that may not even be possible because there's maybe no snakes around you, or maybe the snakes around you, can't get into that because, the houses are built a certain way. You're not afraid of these things, okay? You're not afraid that, when you sit down on your chair, that it's going to disappear uncaused out of nothing, or into nothing, I guess I should say. Okay, because things don't move like that. That's not how reality works. So until there can be some very conclusive evidence to prove that the opposite is true, I think it's more than reasonable to stop and say, hey, look, things don't just appear out of nothing. Big things don't appear out of nothing. Things that we can think of, like an animal or a chair or a car, those things don't appear uncaused out of nothing. Why would the entire universe, everything in existence, so you're talking about an elephant, that's kind of a complex thing, Jim. That's silly to suggest that an elephant could pop out of nothing uncaused. Well, the universe contains the elephant and everything else in it. So it's far more complicated than an elephant or a lion or a snake or a chair or a car. Okay, it is the totality of everything. Why would we think, if it's silly to think that an elephant couldn't appear uncaused out of nothing, that the entire universe could? It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. And until, like I said, we have some more concrete evidence to suggest the opposite, then I would say we're probably pretty safe to assume that things do not appear uncaused out of nothing. And in order for the universe to have gotten here in the first place, you need God. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Now it's proposed to you that that cause is God. Only thing that has the ability to be able to do that. So, hope you enjoyed today's episode. I really enjoyed putting it together. Don't forget to like, comment below, share it, subscribe to the channel, and get this out. Share it with people that you know. Maybe you didn't agree with everything I said, but you want to share it with somebody so that way you guys can help think through this. I encourage that as well. Give me your feedback. I'd love to hear from you. But until next time, we'll call it a day. Next episode we're gonna go to is episode 3, where we talk about the reliability of the New Testament documents. Have a great day, everyone. God bless.